G'day guys and welcome back to MotoringBox. This video is going to essentially be a quick little update from me to let you know what's currently happening with the MotoringBox YouTube channel, but also where it's going to go in the near future. So let's run through it. And first things first guys, I just want to give a massive thank you to every single one of you who has hit the subscribe button on the MotoringBox YouTube channel. I am currently closing in on 13,000 subscribers, which is beyond my wildest dreams. So thank you very much to everyone who has hit the subscribe button. And if you haven't, please consider doing it and also ringing the little notification bell as well so you can be alerted to every single time I publish a video. The first thing I'd like to talk about is what's next on the MotoringBox YouTube channel. As you might be aware, I've currently got a Holden VT Calais, which I am feverishly working away on the script for the feature video. It actually takes a fair amount of time behind the scenes to write a script, research all of the details, and even get an idea in my mind as to all of the scenes I actually want to film before I even go outside and start filming. So I do expect it's going to be quite a few weeks away, I dare say even March, before you see that video published. But rest assured, I'm going to put 110% effort into it and do things right by that car because it really is quite special, I think. Now, the next thing I wanted to address is a question which has come up a few times in the comment section of my videos, and that is what has happened with the previous cars which have been featured on the MotoringBox YouTube channel. That is my NC Fairlane and also the AU Fairmont. Well, in the case of the Fairlane, you can see I still own it. It's one of my favourite cars ever manufactured. My current thought is I'm going to hang on to this car for quite a long time. Things can change, so you never know. With the AU Fairmont, I still own that as well. And both cars, this one and the Fairmont, will be returning to the channel in the near future. But the sad thing is, is that if I do want to feature a brand new car on the channel, a brand new second-hand car, I'm going to have to move one or more of my existing cars on because I'm currently at my car ownership limit. And that is a limit on the running costs, which I can afford, and also storage for those cars. But you can be rest assured that if I do decide to sell a car, I will give it a proper send-off and you'll all know that it's moving on to a new owner. The next thing I wanted to talk about is something that I sort of just touched on before, and that is this hobby of mine, this MotoringBox YouTube channel, is actually really expensive to run. It's something which I struggle to afford from time to time. So what I've actually decided to do on the recommendation of some of my viewers in the comment section is to set up a Patreon account. And this is something which is entirely optional. There is no pressure at all for any of you to go and sign up and start donating money to me on a monthly basis. But for those who are interested to do so, it is now available, and I've got two tiers currently set up. The first one is a low-end tier which will give you 24 hours early access to all of my videos. And I've also got an upper tier which gives you that same privilege, but I'll also add your names on the credits of any full feature car videos that I make. So if you look back on the AU Fairmont and also the NC Fairlane video I did, right at the end when I do that little music sequence, I'll add your names. Because really, if you're donating money to this YouTube channel, you've actually helped make these videos become possible. It's just a way that I can really say thanks to anyone who chooses to donate. And the next thing I wanted to mention is something you may have noticed already, and that is I have a new series of t-shirts which are available to order from Teespring. Below every single one of my videos, you'll see a little scroller which has a couple of t-shirt designs which are available to order. These are serviced through teespring.com. And after placing your order, you'll get your custom t-shirt in the size and color of your choice delivered in the mail in a little baggie like this one. I've actually ordered a few of them already, and the quality is actually pretty decent. I've got one of the mobile office design, so you can become mobile office man. Or there are also shirts available which feature the MotoringBox channel logo, and basically any other designs you would be interested to buy, let me know because I can actually design them up and add them to the shop available for sale. And the last thing guys is that I wanted to give you all a little reminder that I do publish updates from time to time which you can find on the community tab of the MotoringBox YouTube channel. I tend to publish the same things on Instagram as well, so if you want to, you can follow me there as well. And the reason I mention this community tab is that I recently gave subscribers there a chance to ask me any questions they wanted answered. So what I'm going to be doing for the remainder of this video is answering a couple of the questions which I've picked out. The first one is from Felix the Cat, who asked, "What is your day job?" Back in the day, I actually trained as a building designer, and my first real job was actually drafting plans for an interior designer. I wasn't really passionate about it, so I went to work for a tyre distributor where I was in the marketing department, producing ads and videos and managing social media, things like that. And I found that transition to be fairly easy because I've actually been messing around with Photoshop for probably the last 20 years, and I've always been interested in design and things associated with that. It's only really been in the last couple of years that I've started experimenting with video, filming and editing, and I love the shit out of it. So this is why I spend my weekends sitting out here in industrial estates filming videos, which you guys will watch on YouTube. The next one is from Torque Converter, who wanted to know, which car do you prefer driving between the VT Commodore and the AU Fairmont that I both currently own at the moment? And the answer generally seems to be whichever one I'm driving at the time. When I jump in the VT, I'll immediately notice a few things which I absolutely love about the car, and I'll sort of have in my mind that this car is definitely better than the AU Fairmont. But then the next day I'll jump in the AU and I'll be immediately reminded at just how awesome that car is. So picking a winner between the two is really a personal choice. And I will be releasing a video in the future trying to come to some sort of decision as to which one I like more. The next question is from GameGuy0708, who wanted to know how much the VT Calais cost me. Cost is something which I generally try to avoid on my channel because I don't really want people to know how much I paid for particular cars, because it's going to influence how much I can actually sell them for when I'm done with it. The real answer to that is market value. The price which you see VT Calais advertised for in good condition is roughly how much I would have paid for the one that I've got. The same can be said for this NC Fairlane. This is one of the best NCs I've seen ever available, and I paid the premium when I purchased it. And do I regret paying a large amount of money for this car? No, because for me, owning this car is an incredibly special thing. And really, there's no dollar figure which I can put on this car. If I had to sell this thing at the current market value, which is probably $5,000 or $6,000 if you're lucky, for me it's really not worth it. I'd rather keep it. The next question is from Dean Styles, who said, is your VT running factory suspension? It looks a little low for stock. And also, why not use 2 buckets when washing the car? The first answer to your question is no, it is not running standard suspension. It is one of the lowest cars I've ever owned, and it scrapes on almost everything. And the answer to the second half of your question about washing the car using 2 buckets, that is the first one with soapy water and then rinsing the sponge off in the other one before grabbing more soapy water and washing again, is I generally don't bother with that unless the car is super dirty and super gritty. If you're washing something like a 4-wheel drive that you've just taken off road and it's got mud and shit caked all over it, I can absolutely understand that that method would be viable and worthwhile to actually spend the time doing. But most of the time my cars are not super dirty. They'll have a bit of dust on them and maybe a bit of sort of caked on road grime, but nothing super gritty. So if you want to do that, absolutely knock yourself out and go and do it. It's probably one of the best things you can do for your paint. But for me, I just generally don't bother. And the next question is from Queensland Ballistics, who said, I would absolutely love to see you do a quarter-mile drag race with your VT Calais against your AU Fairmont gear. I too would love to see a drag race between those 2 cars, but seeing as I can only drive one at a time, I'm actually planning to take the AU Fairmont out to the nearest dragway, which is out the back of Ipswich, not too far from here, and run it down the strip. I've never actually been drag racing before, so I think it would be incredibly exciting for me, even driving a car like the AU, which would do a quarter mile in probably 16 something seconds. The next comment was from Motoroo, who said, do a BA Falcon next. I think a BA Falcon would be incredibly interesting to look at after the AU because it was the next car in the series and a massive facelift of what was essentially a very unloved car. So I think a BA or BF XR6 Turbo would probably be on the cards, but you'll have to wait and see what happens. The next question is actually from Ford Fan, who wanted to know which is your favourite car between the NC Fairlane, the AU Fairmont and the VT Calais, which I all still own. And the answer is probably this one, because NC Fairlanes are really quite special to me. Ever since I was a kid, I really loved how these things look. So for me, this is the keeper if I ever had to downsize and just run with one car. The next question is from Connor Crow, who wants to know, what's my opinion on the VE Calais? I don't actually have an opinion on the VE. I've never actually been in one, but I do think from the outside they are a fairly smart looking car. Definitely looks like it's up there compared to, say, an SS Commodore or one of the lower models. So I would like to look at one in the future. Whether it's a Calais or maybe an SS, we'll have to see. James Livis asked, what's your dream car? Realistic or otherwise? That's a fairly tough question. If it had to be a brand new car, which I tend to avoid because I've had a bad experience in the past, I'd probably get something like a Kia Stinger GT, a nice large rear-wheel drive sedan with a fairly powerful engine. If it had to be something used and from the realistic end of the spectrum which I live in, it'd probably be something like a BF FPV Typhoon with the 270 kilowatt engine. I really do think they are smart looking cars and they still look modern even though they're 15 years old now. The next question was from Jarl Nieminen, I think, who wants to know, what's your general vehicle preferences? Auto versus manual, V8, V6, straight six or inline four? What do you lean towards mostly when it comes to comfort, styling, reliability, power and handling? I think engine-wise, I tend to lean towards straight sixes because I've loved Falcons ever since the 90s, and whether it's like an Intec in the AU Fairmont or a Barra Turbo in the BA series onwards, they're both awesome engines, and I definitely would lean more towards one of those instead of a V8. As much as I love a car like the NC Fairlane, I really don't love the Windsor V8, which is found under the bonnet of this thing. I probably would have gone for the 6-cylinder version of this if I could have found one in good condition, but when I was looking back in 2016, they were all just shit. When it comes to the drivetrain, I don't really mind manual versus automatic. I think they both have their place. Automatics are good for daily driving, but if you just want to rip through a mountain road or something like that, then manuals are great too. And I do love the additional control which they offer, being able to work through the gears to slow yourself down to lights and not having a computer decide which gear you want to be in, just doing it all yourself. I don't really love one or the other. They both have their place. And when it comes to comfort, styling, reliability and power, I probably like to err on the side of comfort. I love big land yachts like this NC Fairlane. I don't really need a car which can rip through the corners as quickly as possible. For a track car, that makes sense, but for the road, I really think comfort is king. And it's probably my age as well. I mean, I'm 36 now, so my days of driving lowered, stiff as shit cars is probably over. Which is funny because the VT Calais I own is lowered and fairly stiff. And when it comes to reliability or power, I probably want a mixture of both. I wouldn't really want a car which is so highly strung that you really need to worry about it when you're driving it. I just want something which I can get into, drive and enjoy it. Having said that, I would be a happy man if this NC Fairlane had 50 or 100 kilowatts more, and the same can be said for my AU Falcon as well. It's a bit of a balancing act, I think. The next question from Min Thong Chow is, what video games do you play? So at home, I actually have a PlayStation 4, a Nintendo Switch, and a couple of older consoles like the Nintendo 64 and also a Super Nintendo as well. With the PS4, my favorite games are probably Red Dead Redemption 2, and I've also just finished Death Stranding, which is an acquired taste, but I absolutely love the shit out of that game. Some of my favorite games of all time would probably be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. And also, I love racing games, so my favorite there was probably Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec back on the PlayStation 2. But I've also recently been playing Gran Turismo Sport on the PS4 as well. The next question is from Benny W, who wants to know, what are my future plans for MotoringBox? Are you planning on doing some different era Aussie cars or different segments like 4x4s in the future? I guess I don't really have any concrete plans for this channel. I basically want to look at some iconic cheap Australian cars like the NC Fairlane, AU Falcon, VT Commodores, anything which I can afford on my tiny little budget. But I do hope in the future that I can make more money off it and branch out into some of the more expensive models like FPVs, HSVs, whether they're from the early 2000s or the 80s or the 90s. I don't really care where they're from. If it's made in Australia, I'm interested. So Falcons, Commodores, Magnas, even some of the Toyotas that they made here. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We're both going to be going along on this journey together, and initially it's been a fairly slow journey. I can't really put videos out very often, but I do hope that in the future, if I have a greater subscriber base and a greater income, that I'll be able to push the boundaries with what I can do. And I guess my overarching dream would be if I could afford a massive garage of some kind and basically start collecting some of these everyday hero Australian cars. And it would be great to have a space like that for filming as well, sort of like what Mighty Car Mods do, and also Hoovy's Garage and other channels like that. And it would also mean that I don't have to sit out here like a weirdo in the middle of the street filming. So really, anything you guys can do to help this channel grow would be greatly appreciated. Whether it's a Patreon donation, subscribing, or even sharing my videos with your other car-loving friends. Anything that can get the word out there about MotoringBox and getting it in front of more eyeballs is really the key. The next question is from Reese Johnson, who wants to know, how do you get into reviewing cars? I want to do the same with a few of mine and my mates' cars. This is kind of strange because I wouldn't say I'm in the car reviewing business. I guess I'm telling you what I think about particular cars like the NC Fairlane, but it's not really helping Ford sell more cars. So it's really just a bit of fun and a hobby on the side, which hopefully people enjoy. But if you want to get into something like this, it's really a fairly low barrier of entry if you want to keep things simple. You can film it all on your phone and then use simple video editing apps, whether they're on your phone or on your computer. But I will say that while video quality is very important, sound quality is also just as important, if not more. Because even if your video looks amazing, if the sound is terrible, people are going to hate it and they're going to tune out. I'm not the master when it comes to this. I happen to really hate my voice, and a lot of other people out there do as well. But the thing to remember is that no one's perfect, and if you have a red hot go at something and do it properly, people are going to appreciate what you do. And really, at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, keep at it. And the last question here is from Ben Fatula, who asks, what are your future plans for the VT Calais? Also, what's your video scheduling going to look like this year? You're one of my favorite channels, and I'd love it if you did weekly videos. My future plans for the VT Calais are to firstly film a full feature video where I look at the history of the Commodore, the VT in general, and also a couple of things I can't really mention yet. So that's in the immediate future. As for my scheduling in the future, that's actually a bit more difficult because I still have to work a full-time job in order to live, basically, pay the bills, pay the mortgage, pay for the running the cars. So yes, while I'd love to be able to publish more videos, I'd love to do this full time if I could afford it, and hopefully in the future I might be able to, but for now, it's just not going to happen. If you have any additional questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Otherwise, do rest assured that I am working away on my next big video, and you will see it in a couple of weeks. So thank you very much for your support, guys. It's almost sunset here, so I'm going to head home. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and I do need to buy a new one of these chairs. This one, starting to fall apart. See you next time.